That was a good stretch. Oh, hey there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If this is your first time listening, congratulations and thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe so that you can hear future episodes of the show. If you've been listening to the show for a while now, why haven't you left a review? I'm just wondering. It's just a really important to the livelihood of the show, nothing serious. Anyway, in addition to providing informative and entertaining photography-related information, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. At the moment, I'm taking a break from a sort of like a yoga class designed to increase mobility and flexibility. Being a galactic photographer and smuggler, cargo hauler, can take a toll on the body, and maintaining flexibility is key. Speaking of flexibility, in this episode of the show, I speak with photographer Jonathan Pitts-Wiley about having structure while remaining flexible in your photography. It's a great conversation. Stay tuned for it right after the break. Yeah, I don't have enough appendages to do that move. Hey there, Nerdy Photo Crew. There's one thing you should never be caught without as a professional photographer, and that's a good contract, both for dealing with your clients and dealing with subcontractors that you may work with along the way. Be sure to head over to nerdyphotographer.com and go to our shop and find our contract templates for portrait photography, event photography, wedding photography, as well as dealing with second photographers, associate photographers, and any other subcontractors that you might have. Check it out and keep your business safe. Do you have your own website? Are you tired of dealing with slow loading pages and poor support from your current web hosting company? Consider switching to SiteGround, the top rated web hosting company that provides 24/7 support and super fast hosting speeds. SiteGround's platform is built on the premium Google Cloud infrastructure, ensuring top reliability, security, and speed for your website. Their fast network and storage provide optimal site speed and a high level of redundancy, so you can trust that your website will be up and running smoothly at all times. With SiteGround's ultra-fast server setup, your pages will load 30% faster on average, giving your visitors a better user experience and improving your website's SEO. And with hosting starting from just $199 per month, it's affordable for any budget. Plus, if you're not completely satisfied, SiteGround offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't suffer with a terrible web hosting company any longer. Make the switch to SiteGround and experience top-level support, super fast hosting, and a reliable, secure platform for your website. I spent years with a web hosting company that was absolutely terrible. My site was constantly getting hacked and support was nearly impossible to get a hold of. Since switching to SiteGround, all of those problems are in the past. Just visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/SiteGround or click the link in the episode notes to get started and begin enjoying faster, more reliable web hosting today. Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I'm here today with Jonathan Pitts-Wiley. Jonathan, thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Casey.
I'm glad.
And thank you for your patience.
We were finally able to schedule something.
It took us a minute, but we did it. We did
it. We managed. All right, before we get into everything else, we're going to start with the dice breaker. 17. What is the best photography-related advice you've ever received?
I don't even know if this is advice, but it helps me keep perspective. Gosh, there's a few, but I'll start with like the first one that like really resonated with me was my friend and mentor Leonora Unzaldua. She was like, most of the light we experience comes from above. And I just love that. That just sits in my spirit nicely. And then I had a friend of mine, Adam, who was talking about how like for National Geographic, like kind of historically, their like acceptance to rejection rate is something like 15,000 to 1, 15,000 rejections to 1 acceptance. And I like that just because it something I say to other photographers a lot or people who are training up or whatever is most of the photographs you make are not going to be good.
Right.
They're not going to be.
Yeah. Just on average.
Numerically.
Yeah.
So appreciate when you get it right. I mean, work to get it right. It's not luck per se, but you're not, you know, National Geographic, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's just also it's just the like what it depends on what you're photographing, but like sometimes you know it's a matter of being having the skill and being good enough at your craft that when the moment presents itself that you're able to capture it. That's I think that like people will talk about like, well, the moments never come along. Like, well, if the moment comes along, are you going to be able to make
Yeah,
it?
are you ready to seize the
Are
opportunity?
you going to do it justice with whatever you can do behind your camera? That's
Exactly.
that's the true test, I think, of like and the other thing I always talk about like people is consistency. If you're producing consistently good, like that amazing image, some of those are like once in a lifetime things, but are you consistently producing high quality stuff? And that's the thing, like when people are talking about like getting hired or like how do I get commissioned to do something, like people want
Right.
to know that they can trust you to
That's
like.
something. So 2 points I want to say about that because I totally agree. So first of all, my mentor, Mary Beth Meehan, tremendous documentary and portrait photographer, been in the game a while, photojournalist, all these things. Um, I came to appreciate, she had a mid-career exhibition a couple years ago, and just the consistency of the work. It's like, oh, that was made in 2009, or that was made in 2019, or and again, she's been working for a minute, so they were pulling from other exhibitions and other works that she had done, but you're pretty seamless, things that are separated by oftentimes more than 10 years or something like that. Um, and then another sort of thing in the photography conversations I've had. So one of my absolute favorite portrait photographers is Celeste Sloman. She does a lot of work, freelance work. She's, New York Times, National Geographic, all kinds of stuff. She's great. She's great, great, great. Um, and I had a buddy who worked at the Times, and he was saying, say, John, the reason why they hire her is not just because she's that good, but they know that she will produce that
Yeah,
every time and do it in a short amount of time. So like
right,
she can do it in 5 minutes,
right.
Um, and that has always sort of sat with me. But I also have a funny thing of, I don't know, it just again, I guess we're riffing a little bit here, but you know, kind of circling back to the whole piece of, advice I've gotten or things. I think this is something I've come to learn to ask myself. Was I inefficient or was I by myself?
Mm,
Because sometimes, you can hear like, oh man, this person did this in 5 minutes. Oh, this is a boom. They only had this amount of time, but they had a team. They had many other things, you know what I mean? And that's not to say that it's not impressive that they did it in 5 minutes, but one, comparison remains the thief of joy.
yeah,
But also if you're compare like situations.
correct.
Because if you're moving that light, if you're doing all of those things, it just adds up. And so, that's it's something that to keep me honest. And sometimes I was like, oh no, I was inefficient or what have you. But really learning that, we talk about moments, but the moments add up in the minutia too, of like, oh, I had to move
Yeah,
this, oh, I had to correct this. That counts. And if you have people who are like, nah, I got that for you, and you can just focus on shooting,
yeah.
it's just a different, again, we're not talking about quality, but circumstance matters when we're
Yes.
when we're doing this.
Well, I think that's really important to keep in mind. Like people, you said, comparison, thief of joy, is like, yeah, I see so many people who will, and I used to do it all the time. I think I'm much better at it now. I would look at somebody's work and be like, oh man, you know, I want to do that, and then I'm sitting there, and then I find out like, oh, they had a whole production team. Somebody built that set. Somebody's doing lighting. Somebody like there's all these people working on it together, and like, great, it's a team effort, whatever. But I should not be sitting there going like, how could I, when I was starting out as a photographer with my kit lens and whatever, and just say like, why am I not producing this thing that has a whole studio with $20,000 worth of lights and a production team of makeup and hair and costumes and everything, and like getting down on myself. Like, don't, like, yeah. And the other thing that I would say, like you were saying, like, am I being inefficient or am I just doing it by myself? The other thing is, like, what is my purpose here? And I think that some people don't understand that efficiency tends to be necessary in a professional context when you're doing like corporate headshots, or you're doing like things like, like stuff
Right.
like this where you're given a limited amount of time. Like, it talked to Joe McNally, like one of his lighting seminars, about like, oh, sometimes I'm given 2 minutes with the CEO to take a headshot, and it's like I got all my stuff set up, and then they come in, bang, 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 we're done. Like, we don't have a ton of time to do this. We don't get the luxury of playing. And I think there's a difference between playing and like trying to create something new, and like just being inefficient in the sense of like, nobody wants to pay you to mess around with your lights to when they have a schedule.
And that's the thing, and it's interesting because first of all, I'm one of the people, like, photography is an art and a craft, and I'll always like err on it being an art just because, and I didn't, in fact, I always thought of it as an art until I had a friend of mine, tremendous photographer, and I was like, you're an artist. He's like, no, I don't see it that way. And again, who am I to tell? I mean, I will always regard him as an artist because I think what he does is artistic and takes so much craft and all this, or artistic craft. But I really came to, as I got along, I really came to appreciate the distinction that gets made. And again, I don't think it's about quality. I think, but it ties to what you're talking about in terms of efficiency,
Mm.
purpose, constraints, or what have you. And I find that, I very recently just gave myself permission to say, like, I do conceptual and fine art portraiture. Like, that's what I do. I don't really, it's not like I don't do client facing work, but it's just like that's not what interests me. I'm kind of more interested in my own ideas because then I know what the standard is as I'm trying to kind of hit a moving target. However, I say all of that to say so much sort of knowledge, tutelage, influence comes from, photographers who may not consider themselves artists, but their craft is impeccable, but also they are working under time constraints. They are working under meeting the vision that somebody else sort of described to them. Um, and so in a certain kind of way for my own practice, uh, craft photographers teach me more
Hmm.
in a certain kind of way when it comes to the practical aspect of get it done,
Right. And how it
you know,
works.
in how it works. Whereas, but I still like, I like what you said. They were like, I still like the ability to play. A lot of time, man, if I'm making portraits of someone, especially if I reach out to a person, a lot of time it's like I saw one shot
Yeah.
and the rest of the roll of film or whatever we're shooting that day, I'm just kind of like, let's 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 see who you are on that day, and let's build from that,
It,
But it's not like I have like I oftentimes it'll be like one or two shots where I'm like, oh, I just want that one, and then you're playing with the house's money. One, you got to try to get it, but
yeah.
also but you're playing with the house's money after that because sometimes you know and of course, I work with, posing or, really as a portrait photographer, man, I believe it's our first responsibility is to create the conditions for a subject to be comfortable and to be photographed. Like
Absolutely.
that's the job. Forget the exposure triangle and all that. That of course matters, but if you haven't done that first job, you're not going to get the best, you know,
Representation.
yeah. Um, And so, again, a lot of the time it is really just about, kind of creating those conditions. I get it's like I have one idea, but beyond that, it really is this interesting collaborative process where they'll just do something, they'll make a move in between poses where I'm like, oh, didn't even know I wanted that look, but it's impeccable. Hold still.
Right.
you know?
I think that, like, for me, one of the things about portraits, like, I do portraits of people, but I also do, like, it comes around, like, I'm mostly a wedding photographer and, like, doing wedding photos, like, trying to make, most of my clients are people who don't like to have their picture taken. They don't want to think about having their picture taken. So it's all about making them comfortable and giving them things to do. I was just talking about
Mhm.
this prompting versus posing. Like, I might say, like, oh, just lift your arm a little bit, like, because that's going to create a great angle or whatever. But I'm not saying, like, place your arm here, look this way, stand, like, turn your head. It's just like, because then they're like, the life goes completely out of them. It's like, we're going to play, and I might occasionally, like, guide you a little bit. Oh, this is like, just turn a little bit more towards me. Like, oh yeah, perfect. Like, that's it. Like, we're like right there, and, like, and to keep them more focused on not having their picture taken and being, in the moment and thinking about something else, because that way we're getting the real person as opposed
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
not saying there
absolutely.
isn't a place for, like, posed wonderful stuff.
No, there is, and again, I think that, again, you know, I really do have a respect for every part of the craft. There's stuff that I'm interested in, and there's stuff that I'm not interested in or that doesn't move me, but I always find it weird when people will, like, insult types of photography. I'm just like, "You could just be quiet, it's fine." Like,
It's just not your thing. You don't have to
it's
say
not
anything
your
about it.
thing, that's fine, but, you know I think it would be just false to say, every type of photography can teach me something.
Yeah.
Period. Every type of photography can teach me something. And so if you can teach me something, or if something can teach me something, then I have to give it respect.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like the weirdest thing when people are like, well, I don't. You're like, I do not shoot nature well. Like, it's just not a thing I'm good at. I feel like I can identify a good nature photo, but make one, I'm like, eh. But will I engross myself in nature photos from time to time? Yeah, because you still have to arrive at making an exposure the same way.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. There's that technical knowledge that has, that's kind of like we were saying, I was saying before, like, when the moment presents itself, you have to be able to have the craft to create the art. Other
100%.
consistently. I'm going to
Yeah.
say consistently, because, like, people will say, like, well, like, I had somebody I was talking to about, like, like, they say, like, oh, technical knowledge is BS. You don't need it anymore with digital cameras. And I was like, well, if you want to be consistent, you need to know. And they're like, oh, I picked up my first camera and I had it on auto mode, and this is the first picture I ever took as a, professional, blah blah blah. Like, it was a great picture. I still have it today after 15 years. And I was like, yeah, but how often were you getting a picture like that? Just because you got
Right.
one doesn't mean, like, you are, like, putting out regularly, like, that quality of
Right.
work.
Can you do it again?
Right.
Everybody is capable of making one great photograph.
Yeah.
Everybody. I don't care. Like, boom.
Yeah.
But can you do it again? That's
Yes.
the difference. Can you do it again?
Yeah.
And can you do it on purpose again?
Right.
See, that's the thing. Especially early, I made plenty of good shots, but I'm like, man, I couldn't have
I couldn't tell you how I did
done it
it.
again. Whereas now I feel, like I'm a more effective photographer in some respects, simply because I know how to troubleshoot, or, like, make the image come to life on a technical level. I just, and I'm not saying, like, I don't believe in mastery on a certain level. I don't like to use that sort of language. I'm far from being able to do such things. But there are things that I have learned and absorbed, and that I lean on, where I effectively can say, if you hand me any type of camera, I can make an effect. And you'll hear me often use the word effective, because I hate the word good, because it's like, I don't know what that means. But
That's
effective, I
very
like to think, is
subjective. Yeah.
yeah, right? But I can make an effective image because I understand literally how a camera works,
Right.
and that's why I shoot a lot of film and things, not simply because, of the aesthetic and the vibe and the look and the nostalgia quality, although that all factors in. I'm certainly happy to admit that. But on another level, like, I can understand how an analog film camera works. Like, I can't actually tell you how a digital camera works, bro. I'm not a computer scientist. I don't actually know how if you told me it's like, well, it's actually witchcraft, I'd be like, fine.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah. There's
Whereas, with a film camera, they're they're simple.
yeah, there's a
Like, again,
simplicity to it.
there's just like this, you know.
There's something romantic about it too. I would say, like, I love film because, you know, even if you want to get scientific about it, it's still like the energy coming off of your subject is going through and creating a reaction with that film, and like that,
Absolutely.
and you know how to yeah, there's just it is in a way simpler to understand
Well,
than
I think it's and here's
the
my
technical part of
sure.
digital.
Here's my say the weird thing um response. That meme of like
Yeah,
say the weird thing.
yeah.
So my weird thing is I actually think that we are drawn to film, or we have that connection to it. One, obviously because it's like how we understood a photograph to be growing up and all this. But my little fringy theory is because film requires water to work.
Mm.
It's like a thing that like it needs water, we need water. There's a kindred relationship, there's chemical, there's alchemy, but it's like I'm just like I can't relate to like a computer type machine. Like
Right.
I'm like I can't. Whereas like film, you need water, me too.
Yeah.
So
There is sort of like you mentioned alchemy. I think that there is really just sort of a magic to it, and it's like Spielberg said something about it, like, oh, digital is like this incredible technological innovation, whereas uh, film is magic. It's just
yeah,
like there's just a certain sense of like you just like it's magic.
yeah,
And if you ever spend any time in a dark room, like and you see that image like coming to life in
it's
there, it is it's like one of the most magical feelings you feel
it
like
really
every time.
is. And it'll teach you, it'll humble you. I've lost rolls of film or like, oh, didn't develop that right, or oh, the chemicals went bad, I didn't know. So like there's a real when I say organic, I mean obviously these are toxic chemicals, but
Yes.
but but there was a certain like again, whether you want to call it on chemistry or there's just this organic nature to it that you know digital is just it exists in a different space. I grew up in the theater, in the performing arts, and my family is still very much involved in that. And to me, rather than people, trying to draw comparison or like what's better or worse, it all comes down to preference. But I feel like film photography is to theater as digital photography is to motion picture. It's
Mm.
just like they don't need to be at cross purposes with each other because acting on stage is a certain thing. But I promise you, acting for the screen is a craft and a style, and it takes a certain thing that, like, you don't just assume. Now, I always err on the side of
Mm.
thinking, like, if you can act on stage, you can figure out the camera.
There's
You know
different experiences
right.
as a former actor myself. It's it's I think the one thing that I had to learn that was way different about being in a film than being on the stage was on the stage you have to get it to the last row, whereas on film you have to bring it. A lot of times you have to bring it so small, and you're just in the camera, like that sort of thing. Like, and
Yes.
it's such a different energy. I think
It is.
I think the analogy you're making between digital and film is that's very accurate. Like it's a different experience. It's just like two different. It's just total.
Right.
They don't have to be opposed to one another. It's
No.
just a different experience.
That's why I say I'm a film first hybrid photographer. Like, if you give me the choice to shoot film, if somebody said you can only ever shoot film, I'd be like, all right, bet, I'm fine. But there are times when I'm like, well, this is this other medium, this digital medium is just going to be more effective, more practical, more something or whatever. And sometimes it's just like, oh, there's a certain look that I'm like, nope, that's a very specific kind of look that's going to give me that cool. You know what I mean? Um, that's something I'm trying to learn and get better about is like I've wasted a lot of time being precious about things that don't matter.
Yeah.
That's and I feel like I'm still working my way out of that. I have a project even now where I'm like, I I was I don't know why I was precious about like how I go about making the work, but like it didn't serve the work.
Right.
Like it was that was ego. That was me. Is I want to be able to say I did this in this way because who gives a I don't know
You can,
what
you can go ahead.
possible.
Go right ahead.
Okay, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like now, sometimes it does mean like, and if it does matter, then totally fine. I'm into that. I'm not even off of that idea, but is it about the what it's doing for the work, or is it just so you can say,
That I did
I
it.
did this in this way? And if it's the latter, get off that. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of other opportunities where it's like, no, I want to do this way for this specific reason, and this is how it serves the work. Great, great. But I was just like, I was trying to prove something.
Yeah. I
I was
think,
trying to prove something more so than I was trying to tell the best story in front of me.
or create something. You were just trying to, like, yeah, like you said, your ego got in the way.
Yep.
I think that happens to a lot of people. Like, I mean, and I'm working on a film project, but I've kind of finished it up. I've talked about it before on the show, but like when my parents passed away in 2020, I found all these unused rolls of film in their house,
Oh wow.
and I decided to do this project where I was like photographing my dog because I know that I've only got a limited amount of time with her
Yeah.
and like we spend a lot of time together, but it's sort of like, there's something to me, like like the alchemy of it, I was a physics major as well as a theater major and journalism. But like the science of like the energy that's coming through there, like it bounces off there. There's always feeling like there's this part of like those particles got entangled with each other and then
Yeah.
they came through and got entangled with that film, and so that there's something of their energy always part of that film, and that's what drew me to using the film in that way. It wasn't
And see,
about me.
yeah. That's not, yeah, that's how you do that. See, that's not what I was doing. I
Yeah,
was like, I want to show and again, it was blended for me. It was like, I love this particular film. I like this particular like format and shooting, this, that, and the third. But like I again I got precious about like, well, I only want to use this many rolls per session. No, bro, shoot until it's I mean, not that it's unlimited, but like again, sometimes those restrictions, who is that for?
right.
Who was that for? Uh,
Yeah, nobody.
you
Like,
know? And so it's, I still find myself trying to sort of put a button on the project. And it's funny because it's like, I don't want to undermine like the body of work, but I also kind of want to write a forward of like, ego is wild because it can keep you from doing good shit.
yes, yeah, absolutely. It makes you self-critical
Yeah.
in a way that is damaging in the sense that you look at it and go, "This isn't good enough for what I think it should be," or whatever. Instead of going like, well, what do I actually want to create here? Like, what was the story I'm trying to tell? Instead of putting it into yourself and going like, oh, well, this makes me look bad, or this makes, whatever, like this isn't, I'm not projecting that I am you know, the most amazing photographer in the world with this photo. Like instead of, like, well, what am I trying to say with this picture? I think I did that a lot and still do it occasionally, where I'll sit there and look at a photo and go like, oh, this isn't, I bring up like my wife and I we're going on trips and I'll take photos and like she's like I never see the photos from the trip. Like you'll take 1,000 photos on like some trip and like I never get to see the pictures. And I'm like because there's a part of me that was just sort of like, and I've started doing it this year, like going into those and being like, recently put up a slideshow of photos that I took in New Orleans in like 2018.
Yeah.
And I looked at them before and been like, yeah, they're all right. And then I kind of went back into them like while I was looking at them going like, Actually, these are like, some of these are very, very good. And kind of like, okay, this is the story I want to tell with these photos, and editing them and like making sure that like there's some consistency there, and going like, oh, this, yeah, actually, instead of sitting there going like, oh, I needed some perfect picture that encapsulates all of New Orleans culture in one
Yeah,
photo, instead of like telling the story of, what was going on.
100%, 100%. I still do it. I try to lessen it. I still do it, and like, you know, it's like you want to make a good image, right? But sometimes you just get in your own way because it's like, well, the moment's passed.
Yeah.
Oop.
So you mentioned you come from a theater background. What got you into photography? Like, how did you get started?
Yeah, no. So on a very practical level, it's 2018 is the fall of 2018. Again, I'd always, liked photography, but not enough to like do something about it. Um, but it was the fall of 2018 in our theater, Mixed Magic Theater. Um, we needed some like press photos and production photos and things. And, being a nonprofit arts organization, you don't always have the most robust budget in the world.
Yeah.
And so I really said to myself, I was like, you know what? Let me become proficient enough to just do like something that's good enough for press photos, good enough for production photos, just, really kind of a utilitarian approach, dare I say. Well, I started doing that, and I just was bitten by the bug. I loved it. And in that same fall, my grandmother had passed away, or my grandmother passed away like shortly after this sort of foray into photography began. And, I've said this a few other places, and I'm sure I've said it on IG or whatever, but, you know, so I saw my grandmother on every single birthday of my life. I've seen both of my parents every single birthday of my life. I was born on Christmas. So, but every birthday I've ever had, I've seen both my parents. Um, and up till my grandmother passed away, same story. And I think there was just something really about like the the like the passage of time of like you do this thing, it's so regular, and then suddenly
It's gone.
it's gone, and how brief it all ultimately was, and so it got very much into a like, hey man, get into it's not even a conversation she and I had or things of that nature. It was just more like sort of that energetic and spiritual sense of do stuff that you like doing, do stuff that interests you, because like there's a point in which you will spin off this mortal coil, and there's not a point of your choosing, you know um and so I just dove headlong sort of into it, and it felt, you know new, in the sense of I didn't feel like I was like following in any particular footsteps or things of that nature. Whereas, with theater, there's legacy behind that. There's like, and again, all that is great. And as I say, publicly, privately, and ever in between, there's been no greater influence on my photography than the theater. And so that's what brought me into it. And just, from there, um, I kind of quickly, go from, shooting digital. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start shooting some film because, it's a good way to, people always say, shoot black and white film is a good way to learn, which it really is. And I encourage everybody to do it. And then, kind of early into it, probably not even 2 years into it, I saw a Mamiya RB67 in the case at Hunt's, which is like my local camera store. And this is when you could get like an RB kit for like $500, and you could do that. And so I bought it, and I remember the first time I looked through the ground glass, like, that waist level ground glass. And it changed my life, man. Casey, I'm like, it sounds all dramatic and such, but I really looked through and I was like, oh no. Not, and that's when I was hooked. That's when I was like, okay, okay. Um, because you just come to realize that there's so many different ways to experience photography, to make a photograph, to experience making a photograph. And I loved how shooting the RB makes me feel. I feel that same way still. There's something about that RB. But RZ is a little nicer. The little brother's a little nicer because the RB will just let you shoot and be like, oh, dark slides in. Sorry, buddy. Idiot. You know what I mean? Whatever. Or oh, you didn't want to do a 9-frame multi-exposure? You should have let me know that.
Guess you should have wound that.
Yeah. But it's and I was talking with some friends about this recently, and I'm big about this. One of the things that I just despise about artist statements is this whole nice. Something I despise about artist statements. One, I have a whole thing of like, man, just look at the body of work. Like, I maybe give you some contextual, like, here's why I did, here's what this was, but like, why am I explaining myself? It's in the work. But more than that, on a fundamental level, the artist statement is, I thought it was beautiful and I felt compelled to share.
Mm.
But I don't have anything more like smart or whatever to say about it. I thought it was beautiful and I felt compelled to share.
Listen, like I've photographed a lot of art fairs, like big stuff like Basel and like the Armory and other like art things, and half the time, like I refer to it as, it's like a, I don't know, Mad Libs. It feels like sometimes they just have like this pattern and they just like, well, what adjective can I use that hasn't been used already, for like to try to describe this, and it feels like it's like just sort of like I'm justifying my own existence.
100%.
And instead of saying like, hey, look at this, what does it make you feel?
Right. Like, why am I like and I get why, but like, one, we're feeling creatures that think. I believe that. And so we're trying to intellectualize, what Shakespeare said, we're trying to fight by the book of arithmetic on something that defies explanation. It's like if I wanted to write it down, I would have.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like
I would have wrote a story instead of taking a picture.
Yeah. But it's like it's I very much always base things first on how an image makes me feel, whether I'm making that image and looking through the archives or whatever, or looking at other people's work. It's about how it makes me feel. I then go, well, something I talk about a lot. And again, I come from theater, so a lot of directing. Did a lot of theater directing over the last 20 years or so, and the Mamet quote of "You can extort a standing ovation from an audience, but you can't extort a gasp."
Right.
And and I feel like that's the same thing, because if I'm directing a play, I don't want you intellectualizing it like as it's happening. Do that at intermission. Do that later
After the show's over.
after the show is over. But like, no, I want you locked in feeling that whatever the feeling is, I want you to feel, right? And I feel the same way about photography. It's about like, how did it move my spirit? I can then be like, oh, great use of the rule of thirds, or way to like,
Yeah.
or something is like using Dutch angle, but in a way that isn't unsettling, but is actually inviting. So there's a wedding photographer out of Virginia. She works out in New York as well now too. Allie Hansen, and I've just loved her work, and I've followed it for the last couple of years. Beyond the fact Allie's just good people, and in the most Instagram internet friend kind of way, but she just has like this incredible way of like, again, using Dutch angles in odd angles, but in ways that are not unsettling, but are actually like inviting and you want to come in and it feels very approachable. And I'm like, that's why, I'm proud of my own work or whatever. But man, I can talk about all kind of photographers who I'm like, man, I wish I could do this, or like I'm trying to get that good or whatever. And I always feel like it's weird when people like cannot do that. I'll be honest with you. That's
Or
a
you
weird thing about it.
can't look at somebody else's work and say what they enjoy about it, or like I think there's also just this what's the word I'm thinking of, the what you were saying about like trying to like put the way, there's another word, how you experience other people's photos.
Yeah.
and and I don't know if you're familiar with his work, Johnny Edwards, Johnny Creative.
Johnny Creative,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
He takes these amazingly lit, like textured, a lot of depth, like incredibly like deep photos, which are great, fantastic. But then he has these like sort of there'll be these images that are like out of focus. There's like part of it's out of focus. And when I interviewed him and we've talked separately off, like not just whenever, just saying like, and I'll say like, oh, those are the photos that like I love the other photos. Like they are just they're amazing. You know, I'm kind of jealous of your ability to see color and like in the way that you do. Um, but like those photos are the ones that really get me, like resonate with me, and I feel it inside. He goes, "Oh, those are the ones, like just coming full circle. Those are the ones where we were just playing around. Like that's after I know I've got that the shot, and like now we're just gonna have some fun and play around a little bit." And going back to what we were talking about earlier, like this is the I have the technical precision to know that I got my initial aim. Now I'm gonna try for something else and see what happens. We're gonna play around and see
Let's see
what we
what
get.
happens.
And I remember what I was thinking about before. What I always say is emotional weight is more important than technical perfection.
Yes.
The way in which you experience somebody's photo, then you can go back to it afterwards and go like, oh, what did they do technically
Mm-hmm.
that happened here? Like just so you can analyze it and kind of go like, oh, they, like you said, they use the rule of thirds this way. They use the Dutch angle. That like they used a long shutter and like second curtain sync on their flash or whatever they did, and you can kind of like analyze it afterwards. But that initial moment, you're not looking at it the first time you see it and going, what's the rule? Are they using the rule of thirds on this one? How did they? I wonder if this was handheld or on a tripod. No,
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
I've been doing some research for some writing about how people experience photos, and you analyze an image that you see in milliseconds. Like it's just like okay, like that initial impression you get is so fast
Yeah.
from any photo. And I was initially was doing it like how quickly do people like trust, like it's about like
Mm.
headshots in like theater or business, whatever. When people see your LinkedIn or your 8x10, whatever, like what minute they see that, they make their decision like
Boom.
that. Boom, it's done. Like there's no like sitting there analyzing it. They're not going to sit
If
there
it,
and go over it and go like, well, how does it really make me feel? No, this is, can I trust you? Can I trust this person? Like whether it's business, like if I'm going to hire some business to do some work for me, like I'm looking for a law firm, if everybody's got a different looking headshot and there's no consistency and some of them are really bad, I'm like, I'm not hiring these people.
right.
Like they can't get their
Right.
act
Like,
together enough to do like
yeah, it's
consistent
like
work.
yeah, y'all don't even look good next to each other.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm not like trusting you guys with whatever,
Yeah,
anything
sure,
else.
sure.
But yeah, it's that you experience that emotional part of it immediately. And it's like when I go through and I'm culling my images, some people will be like, oh, why did you keep that photo? Like when I've done like live like culling and like showing people like, oh, this is I'm going through and I'm keeping this image. And they'll be like, why did you keep that? I'm just curious. And I'm like, well, look at that photo. Look at how they're like this couple is interacting with each other. Like, sure, this photo over here is like completely sharp, in focus, whatever, but there's no electricity between these
Yeah.
people in this image. This has got a
No
little bit of
light.
motion blur. but there's like so much energy going on in it. Like, and you have to be able to like, that's what you need to see. I think that some people are looking for like some sort of magical equation that's going to tell them like, is this a good picture or not? Like you look at it, it's like there's something,
I think
it
it's
makes you feel away.
was it Robert Frank who said, you want to make an image that's like a line of a poem that you want to read again. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. Because for me, if I linger on an image, there's something. Like that's the thing. It's like I'll look and you're right. You do that quick, but if I just stay and sit with it, that's how I know it's something.
Yeah,
And
it's
whether
making.
it's my own work or somebody else's, if I just go by, okay. But that's things that make you stop and go like, huh? Or you're drawn to it.
Yeah, it makes you feel a way. Like
Yes.
that's the thing. Like going back through any like sometimes artists that I've enjoyed are because of the way they can get under your skin. Like I love horror movies,
Sure.
and like, uh, but also like David Lynch.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were having a discussion about Blue Velvet,
Yeah.
and I had found a video, and she was like, "Well, I just think that it's, just like in ways it doesn't make sense to me," and my response was like, "It doesn't have to like totally make sense. You interpret it, like
Right.
it's left open to you to interpret." And I had
Hmm.
found this video from Simon Pegg, the actor, where he was talking about like, I introduced my daughter to Blue Velvet, and she hates it for all the reasons David Lynch would want you to hate it. And he's like, I'm so proud. And like, we're talking about it, and she's like, I don't know why, like, I don't like this, and this makes me uncomfortable, and this really like, yeah, like art isn't always like, oh, joyful, and like I totally understand it, and like, everything like comes together perfectly in the
Selling
end.
nicely.
Yeah, it's like sometimes people make you do the work yourself, or they purposely make you uncomfortable. There's meters, like Shakespeare used meters that like were not really like would make you like feel uncomfortable in certain speeches, so that you weren't, so it really did get you like feeling angry or upset about whatever was going
Yep.
on. It's like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
understanding that, like, it's the same in photography. Like you can break rules to make people feel a certain way about an image, and like that's it's understanding those
And
things.
that it's interesting too, because that's one of the things that, and I don't know that it's like people, everybody needs to have a signature look or something of that nature, but I do think that there's really something special about when you can identify work by how it just looks. I think that to me is the ability to carve out identity,
Hmm.
and I think that, you know, that's probably even where I am, and not so much in the ambitions way, of course, but just in the sense of like, does my work have a look? Do you need to see my name to know or have a sense that I did it?
Yeah, I mean, well, do you think that there are themes that you were drawn to, or certain like styles that you're drawn to, as far as like the photography, like that or emotional, like
Well, I this is
states
where
that
it
you were
comes
drawn to?
right. I think this is where it comes back to theater. I mean, again, theater is really an exploration of the interiority of people. So if I was to say a thing that I hope that my work reflects, or like if I wanted to, if I was able to choose an identifying aspect
Hmm.
of my work, it would be, you know, faithfully and authentically reflecting the interiority of that person in that moment. Like that's the thing that I strive to do. That's probably, it's one of the reasons why I like to work in black and white,
Hmm.
predominantly because it's like we're
It
getting
kind
down
of
to
strips
business.
things down.
You
You can't
know,
hide in black and white.
can't, you cannot. And so there's that piece of it. I mean, I think that there's like, what it is to be me and my black self, in the spaces that I exist in and have grown up in, and the various, you know, all the world's a stage and it's men and women and merely players. So,
Yeah.
we all are always performing our identities at all times, to varying degrees. And maybe, the real test of things is like, are you performing this identity because you want to be or because you feel like you have to? Um, so I think that there's, that's an important, piece of it in reflecting and depicting the environments and communities that I'm in and around. Um, I so Jamel Shabazz, who's just an incredible, documentary and portrait photographer. He's I mean, in terms of like hip hop cultural photography and
Yes.
like internally, like just he's on, he's a legend, and deservedly so. And beyond the fact that I just love his work and like how it looks and how it really is an archive of a time period,
Yeah.
which
I
is
agree.
incredible. I think the thing that I aspire to is that in every single frame that he puts out, I can sense his essential respect for his subject.
Mm.
And and I'm like, if somebody ever told me that they got that sense from my work, forget about the technical whatever, but an essential and fundamental respect for the humanity and dignity of the subject in front of you. If somebody ever said that I do that like Jamel
Mm.
Shabazz, I'm like, shit, you don't
Yeah.
have to tell me nothing else. Like, the
You've
comments are closed forever. Like,
yeah.
it's.
I think it's also like it's an understanding of your subject or empathy for
Mm-hmm.
your subject, and not necessarily in a way of like, oh, I feel sorry for you. Like people listen think empathy means, oh, I'm feeling sorry for somebody's situation. It's the like being able to like put yourself in their situation. And I think you brought up authenticity. I think I used to use it as a word that because that was very much, is very much my style for like weddings and portraiture and stuff. Like I want people to be their authentic selves, and it's gotten a lot. It's being used way, way, way more now, and it's like starting to need to pull out the thesaurus
Right.
because it's starting to
You gotta
lose a
pull that
little bit
book
of
out.
its punch as a word. But it is that like being able to a respect and understand somebody, but also being able to let them be comfortable enough to be authentically themselves is, like I think is the one of the higher achievements in this. And it brings me back to something I was thinking of when you're talking about the theater. And I think maybe you'll be able to, we're in kind of a, as both as theater people and photographers, uniquely positioned to discuss this. When I look back, I used to do a lot of Shakespeare and all sorts of like that stuff, and I look back when I see like a new production of a show that I did
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and I think about how I would deliver those lines differently now as a human being with my experience, my lived experience, how that changes my outlook of those words. Like I think that it also changes my photography and how I see what I'm going to photograph, and I think that that has a big impact. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that that's absolutely true. I mean, something my father, who's a tremendous actor, talks about is like, you know, for certain roles that are iconic. So, first you play it as a young man, you don't know what you're doing and you're going at it. But then you get some age and you get some seasoning to you,
Seasoning is a good
and
one.
it just your experience of the role changes because you're just bringing things to it that you simply could. So what's great about it is you don't ever have to like it's pretty regret free because it's like, what am I going to regret? That which I had not experienced and did not know.
Right.
And I feel the same way about, photography in the sense of so much of what I've been trying to do of late is simplify, get more simple. There was a lighting, and I always get so upset at myself because I saw it sort of scrolling by on Instagram. But there was a lighting director talking about like a film motion picture lighting director, lighting designer talking about another lighting designer and cinematographer, and I'm upset, dude. But that I forget it because if I see the clip, I'll send it to you. But this cinematographer looking back at their own career and saying like, starting out, I used as many lights as I could. Boop, 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 boop. And then he said toward the end of his career and things, he's like, the only thing he regretted is not figuring out how to light a scene with one light. Like, and that's where I find myself, when it comes to like making images. And I've also just sort of expanded into like doing like mixed media work in prints and things. But really trying to streamline and only bring that which is essential to making the image beautiful. So some of that is the technical piece of like, do I need all of these lights, or is this one angle just the right way what I need? But also what I'm bringing to, you know, because you're a photographer, man. Like you're trying to get a performance out of people in a certain kind of way. Like
Yeah.
you want to get a certain thing, and it's like, am I doing that as efficiently as I could be doing it? Am I doing that in a way where I am showing up for, especially again, like you talk about people, not necessarily wanting to be photographed or like they're not comfortable in that way. Um, am I showing up with whether it's vulnerability or accessibility or whatever the case may be? Part of creating the conditions is giving the subject an opportunity to see you,
Right.
you
And
know,
not just being
and
a floating camera that's pointed at them.
right. And so much of it is, people have sometimes asked me like, oh, like, how to make good portraits and things. And like, I give them the technical boilerplate stuff that's always good to just like, hey, do this. But I really like to stress how important that the connection with the subject is, because they're the second most important thing to a photograph after light.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the, yeah, I think that you get obsessed with all the, especially early on, like you said, you kind of
Mhm.
get obsessed with all of the, like the, I'll draw an analogy to cooking. It's like, I want to throw everything I can in here.
Yep.
And sometimes you use all of that to hide the taste
Yep.
of what you're really, because you're like, you're not so confident in it. And you're like, okay, I'm going to throw all this stuff on top of it because then you won't notice that I didn't, that I didn't engage with my subject. So
Right.
I'm gonna throw all this lighting stuff in there and like to make it, tricky or whatever. And um, but I've still got somebody who looks like they would rather be, having their nails pulled out in the photo
Right.
than someone who looks like they're engaged. Doesn't matter what you're giving me. Like, yeah, my I had a roommate when I first moved to New York, who she was a stage manager, and she would say like the best headshots are where somebody's focused on something. It doesn't matter what it is,
Hmm.
but they've got to be focused on something because there's got to be some energy behind the eyes, that's going on. And like when you see those photos of people who are just, and like I've done a casting, and I'm sure you've been through that where you get these headshots, people who are just like, there's nothing going on
There's
in the
no
face,
there.
and you're just
There's no
like,
there.
yeah, exactly. And you're just like, I need, whether it's, you know, evil or whatever, happy, seductive, whatever thing that's going on, there needs to be something going on. And then
Well,
there's
it's like
nothing.
actors. You got to make a choice,
Yeah.
right? Actors, it's like make a choice. So our job is to we're effectively as directors.
Right.
Did I create the conditions for you to make a choice?
Or did I make a choice and tell you and get you to the place where we needed to be? Like it depends, like the type of
Yep.
photo you're taking. Like if I
Yep.
need something out of you, if I need a specific emotional state out of you, and like it's up to me to like get you into the place where that's what you're giving me. And like I have lists of prompts that I have for people, and people are like, oh, like some people have looked at them and go like, oh, well, those are very serious. Like some of them, they look at some of them, and they go like, that's really kind of like heartbreaking. And I'm like, it depends on what feeling I'm going for and what kind of a response I want from my subject. Of course, I've got some in there that are a little darker, like but I'm not. It's not to make people uncomfortable, but it's just like it's dealing with coming up with the emotional, like people who are not trained to, especially to come up with like an emotional state. And you're saying like, I need this out of you. I need you to think about this, like
Right.
this type of thing.
Something I say to portrait subjects all the time is like, the only thing you can't do is tell a lie. Don't lie to the camera, because I'm not good enough to overcome a lie. Like I don't have the gear, the skill set. If you are not being your authentic self, whoever that is in that moment, that's what the camera will pick up. And there's nothing that I can
You're not being real.
do about that. Right. And so, showing up, and again, you said like authentic is show up as your genuine self. Let's make genuine our word, maybe.
Yeah.
But like show up as your genuine self, and whoever you are at that moment. When I do portraits with people for the first time, I ask 3 questions before the session. They get them like before, which is, how do you see yourself? How do others see you? How do you want to be seen? I am not like, I don't seek like the answers, or come into the word into
It's
the
not a
session
specific thing. Yeah, there's not.
But it's fascinating what those 3 questions get people thinking about, and how they tee up any number of direction. It's its own little 20-sided die, I guess.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but it also gives you a lot of insight into them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I always tell people, like, ask questions of your subjects, whether, like it's a portrait subject, wedding clients, whatever. There are lots of questions I ask people before any session that are like, hey, this helps me get to know you, how you see yourself, and like what situation we're in and what I can do. Like I will always ask people what their favorite movies are, what their favorite music is, because if I can like bust out a line, like I need to break the tension. If I can bust out a line from your favorite movie, or like sing a lyric from your like favorite song that helps you, like if we were in a real serious moment and I need to break you out of that, like we can, or if you just feel stiff to me, like I can tell there's like something going on and you're like, well, you're frozen up. There's some way to break that tension. Like getting to know people and knowing how they, what they react to and who they are, how they, like you said, how they see themselves, how they feel other people see them. That's like, that tells you, so, oh man, I got to add that to my list.
Please do. Because it's fun, and I phrase it as, how do others see you? Because I don't even tee up with the feel.
No. But I'm just saying that's the undertone, is like, it tells you a lot about like what they're thinking, and like how they think people see them is just like,
and how do you want to be seen? It's, so it's sort of introspective, but a bit aspirational. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I found that it really sets the table nicely, for any number of other questions and other prompts, that get us to the place where, maybe we make a good image or 2.
Yeah, I think that it's it helps empower them in a way to have some voice in like their image and like what they're putting out there. That's
right.
Great. So, all right, I think we're getting, that's a really great place for us to kind of start wrapping up.
Sure.
What's next for you creatively? As a theater? Or
so I've been focusing much more on photography, and really been leaning into this mixed media Because I laugh and I think about how many like blessings and adventures have come from like a practical need,
Hmm.
like of you know what I mean, like so embrace the practical because sometimes it'll take you on an adventure. Um, so a lot of time, just getting into printmaking and this mixed media stuff, it was really about like I was like I want to have more physical prints of my work, but I don't always want it to have to be like framed and mounted in like exhibition type thing, and I don't want to use it. We'll just print them out of 4x6 or 5x7 somewhere. But like, I don't know. I was like, it's like I wanted something more than that, but not quite like,
Yeah.
it's got to be framed in a gallery type thing. And I was on IG and I saw like photo transfers that you can do with photo transfer medium and like
Yeah.
you just print it out on printer paper and you do that and I was like, well shoot, I can do that. And so I started doing that and had a and then just at the same a few days later my local library was like, because they're renovating, was like tossing out or left out a ton of old ebony magazines and I'm like, well shit, I'm
Hey,
taking all
I can do
these.
stuff with this.
Right, and so doing that, and then I was talking to my friend Dominique, and she was like, "Oh, have you ever like heard of like gel plate transfers?" And I was like, "No."
What's
She's like,
that?
"Yeah, it's like this gel plate," and she sent me a video of it, and I was like, "Oh, you don't messed up." And so I've been really doing a lot of these prints, and it's cool to like. I've had, I won't call this, it's not a crisis of sorts, but I'm like, well, am I like now is photography just the thing that I'm doing to get to these prints and things? Like, what is that about? But then I was like, no, photography is a beginning and end unto itself. Like it can just be like, boop, you print it, it's
Yeah.
fine, or you can do so much more with it. And it's been cool to reimagine and print and do any number of things um with the base of like, hey, I made this portrait, I made this photograph.
Yeah.
So, not only do I not have to worry about copyright, I'm getting to use my own work and repurpose it in ways that has really been interesting.
It can have a life
Um,
beyond.
right. And so I've been really jamming on that recently. There's a few projects that I gotta put a button. The project I talked about where just ego came in. I gotta just put a button on that just because I just like need to. And I don't say that like badly, but I approach it as like I gotta finish this so that it's finished so that I can move on to other projects that I really wanna um get into. So many of it comes into like just being, you know, excuses to have conversations with people or to
Hmm.
explore interest. Like something I want to do at some point is do like documentary photography of like stagehands and like technical crew and so like people talk actors. I'm like, shoot, I'll turn somebody into an actor. I can't turn nobody into a stage manager. I can turn nobody into a light designer. And those the sort of back of house who is just the lifeblood of a production in so many different respects. So that's something
Sitting
I'm
at the board or like hanging
yeah.
lights. Yeah.
Because I do it at the theater enough. I'm like, man, I'd love to do this in other theatrical spaces. Um, and then applying for grants and doing all that good stuff because you just again I don't you know I'm being more limited in my client work in terms of session offerings and things of that nature, and not because I'm like again it's not like I'm too good or too cool. It's just you know I think about I have to love how photography makes me feel.
Hmm.
It's really important to me. Like that part of it. Like I can go do plenty of other things that I'm just like, I don't care how this makes me feel, or like I can feel neutral about this. But I have to love how making photographs makes me feel. And if I don't love how it makes me feel, one, probably not going to do very good work. But more important than that, I will I will infringe upon the love that I have for photography. my friend Polly, she was so on point. She said this about, I don't know, last year and a half ago. She was talking to her mom about a photograph I'd made of her, and her boyfriend, and it wasn't a state, it was candid. They were just off doing their thing. I made the photograph from, across the lobby. This is after a show, the first show that she was a lead stage manager of at the theater company where she works, and she was explaining to her mom about the photograph. Photography is Jonathan's love language.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's a bar right there. Because and that's really what it is. So if I don't feel that, I that's just no good for me. You know what I mean? And so I've I'm working on figuring out what that means, because for a while I was like, it's kind of fine art, but I do client facing work and this, that, and the third. But really, it's like I want to do conceptual and fine art work. I'm certainly open to doing editorial if fashion, if that's offered and things of that nature. I have to be into the idea in the premise,
Yeah,
and
there's and like this is something that I've been able to do over the years. When it comes to something that just doesn't when it comes to like things like more corporate work, that some people are like, oh well, how do you feel creative about that sort of stuff? I was like, I get into it into a way, like a mindset of what does, like, one of the things that I feel very important to me is like making people feel good about themselves.
yes,
So even I'm gonna take pictures. Like I'm taking pictures at a corporate event. Like I want to take pictures of these. Like the impetus for me here is to take pictures of these people that are going to make them feel better about themselves. Or if it's something I'm doing like for, you know, a charitable cause, whatever. I'm like want to help further this message. I want to take
mm-hmm.
photos that are like really going to spread this. Like I do a lot of work with this agency that gets books into children's hands as quickly as possible, like when they're young, like
Yes.
getting them like regardless of their economic status, like how much development helps, like having them have a book that, and like this charity
Huge.
charity doing like work, like with a lot of these people, like this is the first book the family has had, like they just don't, like, can't afford books or whatever, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
and how much it changes their lives. So like it's really super important to me to like find that is a creative image for even something that some people will be like, oh, it's just like a corporate event and whatever, and like it's not really, like I can find the spark in there that really like gets me
right. And
going for that.
that's and I love how you phrase that, because I think it's, again, it's not one of those things of like that work is beneath me or an off me. It's just like I have to be able to find the spark, and I know what my mentor was like, you make a list of what you want to do and what you're willing to do. And I'm like, I think that that's very important. I think that a lot of people don't necessarily always do that. It's like, you got to have, it's both.
Yeah.
Um, and so even for those, corporate events or corporate gigs or things of that nature, it's like, yeah, I have to be able to bring some kind of artfulness to it, or feel like there's a connection that can be made. In the instances where it doesn't feel like that, it's like, you know what, that's not for me. But yes, the ability to your point, that ability to like, well, what can I tether to here? That's always the question. That's why I say to
Yeah.
people, I'm like, when in doubt, I'd rather have the conversation than not. Please don't assume like, oh, well, you wouldn't do this. I'm like, listen, I told you, like, I'm giving you a general ballpark of
Right.
like,
Yeah. It's like, it's
doesn't interest me. But one, it's an honor for anybody to think, like, I don't care what anybody says. If somebody thinks of you to do certain kind of work, even if ultimately it's not like a good fit, if somebody thought of you, like, you can show that some modicum of respect.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I
Like
mean?
it's just like, oh, thank you for thinking of me. I've done that many times where I've said like, oh, I'm not the right person for this job. I know the right person for this job. You should go talk to. So, and that's just good karma in general.
And I thank you for saying that, because that's some of the weirdest thing that I don't like is like, listen, if I'm not the person but I think I know who that person is.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you.
Right. I'm doing you like I'm serving you better by like giving you the right person for the job than I am by taking the job, not enjoying it, doing a poor job of it. Like, and that's the thing. Like I've mentioned previously on the show, like where even with weddings, where people will come to me and be like, I need like, and I can tell what they need. They need a type A personality. They need somebody who's going to come in there and bark directions. Like I've done theater direction. I'm capable of getting, but that is just not my personality and not something I want to do. Like I can manage like a few like drunken groomsmen and, you know, humorously get them in line when I need to, but I don't want to spend 12 hours shouting at people. And I can tell that that's what these people need. And I'm like, hey, I am not the guy for that job. Like, but this person I know thrives on that. And
Sure.
like, and can give you exactly what you need.
And that ability to say no or put up boundaries or, point people in a direction, I think it's so, and again, I think I'm still learning, so like, don't get me wrong, but it's such an important thing of like, that thing of like, well, if I say no to this one, there's not going to be any more asks. Like we kind of get that thing of like, well, if I say no,
They're never going to come back to me.
nobody's gonna come. It's like, no, that's not true. Like in really learning to be like, nah, like I said no to this for the reasons that whatever the reasons were, and other opportunities will present themselves. But I think that's come to a point that you were kind of bringing up is move with good energy and good intentions in really in life in general, but in the communities that you are exist in. It's weird, like seeing people who move nastily or
Yeah.
selfishly, or it's just like, and again, you can't say that it limits success because you and I both know people who are indecent people who are
Yeah.
successful. So like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, if you aren't nice, you won't get things. Like that ain't true.
Yeah.
That ain't true. But you know, whether it's spiritual vibe, laws of attraction, or whatever, I do think that you get back what you put out, and and when and it's not about when you're up.
Yeah.
It's when you're down and you need a break. That's when people remember.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I remember,
Even you, yeah. I think that's
blah,
one of
blah,
the
blah.
things that has helped me, like in that sense of like made me feel more confident about like saying no to jobs and feeling better about it personally is like the damage, like in a job that I know that is then like just going to destroy me either emotionally or physically, whatever, and it's not worth the money that I'm going to get paid. Like I am better off not doing that job. Whether like, like think about the money reason where people are like, "Oh, I should do it because I need the money. And you're like, yeah, but if I do it and I've had a job recently I was up for, there was like a big job. It was like a week long thing.
Yeah.
And I gave them a quote and they were like, well, we also want to add video to it. And you're gonna like that I'm gonna be like responsible for. And our budget is less than half of that. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Still a big sum of money. But it's like no, I can't. Like I just
But
and also they wanted like photos from each day edited the next day. And I'm like, no, I can't. There's no way that I'm
yeah,
gonna be able to do it for that price. Like that's just like that just and I thought to myself, like some young kid out there is going to take this job because they want the job and they're like, oh, that's a lot of money. And they're going to destroy themselves because they're young and like able to.
that's kind of what you do.
That's what you
That's
do
what,
when you're starting out. You
yeah.
overcommit to things and you kind of you learn your boundaries. But the thing is, over the years, I have noticed that the more like if I whether it's a wedding client or a corporate client or whatever it is, I have noticed that a lot of those people come back to me even years later and say, you know what really stuck with me was the fact that you said that you weren't the right person for this job. Wedding clients will refer me to other people. Well, like I would like the person that they hired is not the first person on their list that they recommend
Right.
because they think back of like, oh, well, you know what? If he's not right for the job, he will recommend somebody who is right for the job. Like, so that's even like that's better than just like sending them somebody who might not think that way and will give like is considerate in thinking about what their needs are. Corporate clients,
Absolutely.
same thing. I've turned down jobs where I was just like, you know what? I can't do this. I just can't handle what you need. Like there were times earlier in my career where I was just like, I don't have the system for, like you were talking about, the team, like the people, the
Right.
behind the scenes people to like be doing all the work to efficiently do the thing. And I'd be like, ugh, thank you for really like for reaching out to me. But at this point in time, I am not
Not
at that.
there.
I'm not in that place. And but then people come back to me a year later and be like, "Are you in that place now?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, actually, I am," because you made me think about it, and I got the things together for it. And now, sure, let's go and do that. Like I have a drone operator. I have assistants. I have video people. I have like those things for those types of jobs that I can pull that all together for you. And they're like, great. Like we really appreciated that you didn't waste our time or like take a job that you couldn't do and waste our money and time. Um,
And
last
how
question.
you move is critical. It's
This is
critical.
kind of related. Last question. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Advice I would give to my younger self. Based on our conversation today, I'd really just say like be very clear about what you want to be precious about. Said another way, most of the things that you're precious about, it's not deep like that. At least when it comes to the crafts, when it comes to this, don't let, maybe another way of saying it, don't let your ego get in the way of the work. Don't let your ego get in the way of the work. Because you're taking away opportunities. Ego takes away more opportunities than it creates.
Hey, photographers, imagine losing every photo, project, or document in a single crash. Scary, right? That's why there's Backblaze, the simple, reliable, and automatic way to back up your important data and photos to the cloud. Photographers, creatives, and everyday users, Backblaze protects what matters most with unlimited backup and easy recovery whenever you need it. I use Backblaze as part of my workflow to back up my most recent shoots until they're delivered to my clients, my most important business photos and documents as well, and all of my personal photos and videos. It's just $9 a month or $99 a year for unlimited data backup from one computer with 1 year version history and access to your data from anywhere. Crashes happen. With Backblaze, your files are safe, secure, and just a click away. Start your backup today at nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/backblaze or click the link in the episode notes because peace of mind is priceless. That's nerdyphotographer.com/backblaze because you never know when a crash is going to happen. Hey photographers, are you ready for a website glow up? Get supercharged with StyleCloud. StyleCloud offers beautifully designed, high-performing website templates built just for creatives like you. Whether you're showcasing weddings, portraits, or passion projects, you'll look as good online as your work does in print. Were you left high and dry and wondering what you were going to do with your Flow Themes website when the company shut down? No problem. StyleCloud makes migrating your Flow Themes site easy. Your content moves over, no stress, no mess. Plus, import your images directly from your PicTime galleries. No downloading, no re-uploading, just seamless integration and stunning design. Visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud or visit the link in the episode notes. Save 15% when you use code NERDYPHOTO15 at checkout. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud and use code NERDYPHOTO15. StyleCloud isn't just a template, it's a launch pad for your brand. Get started today.
Hey, hey, hey! And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
Jonathan, Oreo, I don't know if you're a fan of Oreos, made a lot of cookies.
Yeah.
Over the years. At this point, how far do you think the pile of Oreos, if you stacked them individually, how far that would reach?
I'm going to say to the moon.
To the moon and back 5 times.
What?
5 times.
Nice.
That's a lot of Oreos.
Nice.
When you realize how far away the moon is, and you go, it's a really long way away.
5 times.
And back. And back.
So it's five round trippers.
Yeah.
Wow. I just took down a because they have the Oreo ice cream sandwiches now.
Yeah.
Or like they've had them for a while, but like I indulged the other week and I was like, I tried to hide them from my kids, man, but they found them. And so you didn't get one. That's right.
Jonathan, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you, find your work, and keep up with you?
You can find the work on IG at J Pitts-Wiley. At J Pitts-Wiley is the handle. The website, jpittswiley.com. I'm on LinkedIn too. Find me on IG or on the website first. I'm not, again, LinkedIn is cool, but I'm more likely to see a message or whatever on IG or through the website. So, I am but an email away most of the time.
Thank you so much for coming on and for being, we had a little trouble scheduling, but it took time, but being dedicated to finding a time. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, no, man. Well, let me say that I'm a big believer in trying to show up and support not just honestly people who reach out and support me, but I see what the show is doing. I see how you move. I see how you exist in this space of photography and on the public square. And that's something my persistence is very much a testament to who you are and how you move through the world and your values and your character. So I was just feeling bad. I was like, man, this is a good dude. I'm out here just and I wasn't ignoring, believe me. It was life does all those things, but I hope that you understand that it was very much a response and a response to and a reflection of how that you're good people and we're all lucky to have. It's good to be reminded that there are good people, and and when good people show themselves, you show up for them. And so even if it takes
however long, it doesn't matter.
Even if it takes a long time, you show up for good people. So I guess I was just trying to do my part.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. You're making me all misty.
All right, Casey, man. Well,
welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jonathan Pitts-Wiley. You can find links to Jonathan's work and learn more about him in the episode notes. Be sure to go follow. And while you're following, make sure you follow the Nerdy Photographer at The Nerdy Photo on all major social media platforms. That's at The Nerdy Photo, no dots, underscores, or dashes. Don't miss the hijinks or the low jinks that take place between episodes. I think the class has moved beyond what I'm physically capable of. Because everyone else seems to have folded themselves into a sort of cube. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.